Story 1. I have a very niche answer. We don't know what is supposed to naturally bind to the area that benzodiazepines work at. Benzodiazepines are medications like Xanax and Valium. They produce anti-anxiety effects and have a distinct chemical shape that fits into the benzodiazepine site in a group of 5 proteins. However, we don't know what is supposed to bind there. Many medications are analogs of naturally occurring molecules that we replicate to create a desired effect. The benzodiazepine site is for something, but we just don't know what. I am heading to bed. I will respond to anything else in the morning. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Witnessing so many genuinely inquisitive and intelligent individuals has made my day. Please never stop learning. Thank you all. Story 2, Doctor here. Off the top of my head, here are a few deceptively significant points. 1. We still are not exactly sure how anesthesia works. We know it causes certain effects that are useful, so we use it. 2. Psychiatry is still shockingly limited in our understanding of human disorders. It is constantly evolving, and we do not understand much about the medications we currently use. The diagnostic criteria for disorders changes as we realize that various behaviors may not originate from the same source disorder. It is incredibly challenging to diagnose when the criteria are largely based on self-report and subjective observations. 3. To a lesser degree than psychiatry, neurology is still learning a lot. It has made more progress because more objective findings can be observed in neurology than in psychiatry, but we still struggle with how brains function. 4. Immunology is a complex field, and there are still many unknowns. 5. Yawning. We are still guessing why that happens too. There are some theories, but that is the best we have. Story 3. Most of our medicines and treatments are fairly simple, as they address one part of a chemical cascade occurring in the body. For many medicines, it is not even clear how they work or if they work. For example, examining the actual efficacy trials of brand-name antidepressants shows that, when looked at in aggregate, they appear to have minimal effectiveness. Yet, nearly everyone knows someone whose life has been positively impacted by a specific antidepressant. Story 4. The biggest issue I want to address is how we remember things and how our memory works. Some progress has been made at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, but it has not been fully understood yet. Story 5. I am not a doctor, but I study cell and molecular biology. The immune system is incredibly complex and feels as though we are staring down into the Mariana Trench. Story 6. Apparently, we know very little about fibroids, which affect about 75% of women at some point in their lives. This is concerning, especially considering that the largest fibroid removed weighed 100 pounds, indicating it is not a minor issue. There are theories about different hormones and risk factors, but aside from surgery to remove existing fibroids, there is little information on how to prevent them from recurring. Story 7. Another question is how babies and young children assimilate so much information so quickly. As far as I know, it cannot be replicated by a computer. Story 8. Medical science, in relation to women and their bodies, often relies on data primarily based on men. Much of the research is predominantly focused on male subjects. Story 9. Not a doctor, but the amount of confusion I encountered from medical professionals when I asked questions during my treatment for breast cancer was astounding. That's not to imply they were unhelpful or lacked knowledge. I just asked a lot of questions. Me, why do I need to take an antihistamine before chemotherapy? Nurse, it helps with bone pain. Me, oh, that's interesting. Why is that? Nurse, nobody knows. Me, what's the cording I'm experiencing in my arm following my mastectomy? Physical therapist, nobody actually knows what it's made of or where it comes from. Me, why am I suddenly unable to eat gluten following my cancer treatment? Gastroenterologist, trauma, probably. Having cancer really highlighted to me that so much of the human body is still a mystery. Story 10. Apparently no one knows why acetaminophen works. We just know it does. Story 11. Have you ever had a muscle knot? They are undetectable by any test or machine, and medicine has not yet figured out what is happening in our bodies when we experience them. Story 12. If I'm not mistaken, don't we still not have a definitive cause for migraines? It took me years to find my trigger, which was sleeping on my back and exacerbating my sleep apnea. I would wake up with a severe headache at 4 a.m. and vomit 2 to 3 times an hour until 2 p.m., twice a month. I couldn't eat, drink, take medicine, drive, talk, watch television, or think. I spent the day alternating between the bathroom floor and my bed, hallucinating from the pain. I got a daith piercing nearly 4 years ago, and it changed my life. I can count on one hand the number of times a headache has made me vomit since getting the piercing. If I wake up with a headache, I may get sick once, take an extra strength pain reliever, and lie down for an hour, and it's like I never had anything wrong to begin with. Story 13. Mental health professionals, rather than medical doctors, continue to have limited knowledge about the mechanisms of schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. While we understand some aspects of these conditions, much remains confusing. Story 14. Patient of Reddit here with chronic illnesses that no one can solve and injuries that have never healed. We know very little about the human body, but still more than we used to. Story 15. There is still much unknown about hunger and satiation. No one truly understands what causes eating disorders, particularly anorexia. It is alarming how much hunger cues influence all of us. Story 16. It's not cancer. It's cancers, and every specialized stem cell or undifferentiated pluripotent cell is at risk of mutating into something that doesn't stop multiplying. The cancer of a specialized gland cell is called adenocarcinoma. The cancer of a skin cell is called squamous cell carcinoma. The cancer of a melanocyte is called melanoma, and so on. So anytime someone says they're hiding the cure for cancer, they are demonstrating significant ignorance. Story 17. Not a doctor, but someone who was recently diagnosed with postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome after a year of medical challenges. There is a lot of information about medications that help with unrelated issues, but the reasons are often unclear, such as the use of propranolol for migraines. Additionally, there are concussions. Half of the research is not up to date, and it is very specific to the individual. Story 18. My dad is a retired anesthesiologist, and I remember him saying we didn't really know how general anesthesia worked. We know it works, but we don't understand the precise mechanisms that make it effective. Story 19. Not a doctor, but I always find it surprising how unsophisticated much of surgery is. It is the year 2025, and our best solution for many problems is still just cutting something. If your hand or wrist hurts, we cut that ligament. If you have stomach pains, we remove the gallbladder. It is incredible that we haven't developed more advanced solutions to many of these issues. Story 20. Not a doctor, but I have a rare chronic illness. Young doctors are more open to helping me, while older doctors, especially males, are not very helpful. I have heard doctors say, "I've heard of your disease. We had a lecture on it once." There is so much they do not know. Story 21. Obligatory. I am not a doctor, but many people do not understand spinal cord issues. I believe individuals should know that spinal cord injuries are not healed simply because the patient starts walking again. If you experience this at a young age, it's important to recognize that you have a new normal, and that is acceptable. No one else can make decisions for you. Others may exhibit ableism or shame you, but it is crucial not to listen to them. Source: experience. I appreciate you all. Goodbye. Story 22. We still do not know how inhaled anesthetic gases work. We have theories, but not definitive facts. Story 23. The brain, and especially how it governs our actions and personality, raises important questions. Why do some individuals commit crimes like rape and murder despite knowing the consequences, while others would never consider such actions? Why do some people require multiple chances for rehabilitation while others live their entire lives correctly? We do not have the answers. It frustrates me when some individuals claim that everyone can be rehabilitated, as if we truly understand what that means and how it works. Story 24. I'm not a doctor, but when I found out I was having identical twins, I started looking into the biological process that leads to identical twins, and it turns out nobody knows. There is a lot of information on the type of identical twins you'll get depending on when the zygote splits, such as whether a placenta is shared, if the sac is shared, or if they are conjoined, but why? There is also significant disagreement in the medical community on whether there is a hereditary factor. Feel free to correct me if my information is outdated, though, as I looked into this about 5 years ago. Story 25. There is an entire immune system in the gut that we don't fully understand. It seems that the microbiome in our intestines influences many aspects of our health. Are we simply a walking skin suit for the microbiome? Story 26. The effects of vancomycin to treat methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus infections have on the body are concerning. I have been on it 6 times, and the last dose was 3 grams a day. Now I have a shingles-like rash all over my body, and no one can explain why. Story 27. Doctor by the Thompson Twins and the movie Dr. Detroit were both released between 1983 and 1984, and there is still no explanation as to why. Story 28. People focus on a few controllable factors in human health. The majority of human health concepts were understood by our great-grandmothers. Eat a balanced diet, avoid obesity, exercise regularly, get enough sleep, and find joy. Beyond that, it often comes down to genetics and luck. It's wise to maximize the significant factors and find acceptance with the rest. Story 29. We do not fully understand the function of the omentum. For years, it was thought to be just connective tissue in the gut, but we have now learned that it is a whole organ affecting the gut-brain axis, which we still do not understand very well. Story 30. I swear, every ailment I am diagnosed with is followed by, and we don't really know very much about it. Story 31. I'm not a doctor, but no one can tell me what causes my atopic eczema or how to heal it. I'm frustrated that everyone just suggests applying cortisone, which actually doesn't change anything. It's so annoying that I've often thought about burning it off or wished for a skin transplant. But I guess that is too dangerous and could lead to more complications. Story 32. We still do not have a definite cause for primary migraines. However, we understand what causes secondary migraines, such as tumors, but we only have theories about common migraines. Story 33. OBGYN here. We still don't know exactly what makes labor start. We understand the mechanics and physiology, but we don't know what makes the average uterus signal that it is time to begin labor. Story 34. I am not a doctor, but based on my experience as a patient with epilepsy, there seems to be a lot we do not know about seizures. Perhaps I just do not have the best neurologist. Story 35. Why do people get certain types of cancer? My aunt had lung cancer, which was thankfully caught and treated early, even though she never smoked, and no one knew exactly why. Story 36. Medical dramas make everything appear more urgent than it actually is. Most of the time, doctors are just ruling out common issues first. Story 37. Not a doctor, but I've heard we're not really sure why your hands and feet prune after being wet for a long time. Is that true? Story 38. We do not know the precise mechanism by which vitamin B12 deficiency causes nerve damage. We understand that it occurs, but the reasons remain unclear. Many medical phenomena are similar, observable and proven cause and effect, yet complex and not fully understood. Much of biology still presents challenges, particularly in neurology, which often involves situations where we confidently identify damage causing specific effects, but lack an understanding of the underlying reasons. Story 39. As a biomedical researcher, I have learned that we know very little about the human body. It is truly the most fascinating machine that we barely understand. Story 40. According to my doctor, what causes irritable bowel syndrome? Also, what exactly causes sexually induced sneezing? Story 41. One of the few certainties in medical science is that nobody born blind has ever developed schizophrenia. Story 42. There are organelles called vaults in human cells and in most other eukaryotic species. They are made of 78 copies of a protein known as the major vault protein, totaling about 3 times the size of a ribosome and larger than most viruses. Their function is not fully understood, but it likely relates to the nucleus, although analogs of the genes for vaults have even been found in bacteria. Since they are present in such a wide variety of species, life on Earth may have started developing vaults early in its history. The similarity of the genes encoding vault proteins across diverse species suggests the importance of vaults for viable life, but experiments have not shown significant harm to laboratory animals that had their vault genes knocked out. Interestingly, several species used in laboratories as model organisms naturally lack vaults. The use of these organisms predates the discovery of vaults in 1986, with some going back over a century. Story 43. Viagra was named by combining the names of Niagara Falls and Vigorous. Many medication names hold meanings and hidden references to their intended use. Story 44. Oh my, there is so much to learn, especially about the female body. For example, we do not fully understand why premenstrual syndrome occurs. There is also a wealth of information about the brain. We do not precisely know why the brain requires us to sleep. Story 45. Idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis is a disease that causes diffuse scarring of the lung. In medicine, the term idiopathic essentially means that the cause is unknown. Over the years, researchers have identified the causes of multiple fibrotic lung diseases. Generally, any idiopathic illness is likely to be better understood in the future. This is just one example. Story 46. I am not a doctor, but I have researched gadolinium deposition disease, which I have. Despite being injected countless times, no one knows why some people experience severe heavy metal poisoning and disability after receiving magnetic resonance imaging contrast. There is surprisingly little research on these substances and almost no long-term health effect studies. Additionally, everyone who receives contrast has some gadolinium deposited in their body and organs, yet no one knows if there are any long-term consequences of this. Story 47. I am not a doctor, but I can say we have virtually no idea what the gut microbiome does or what makes up a healthy mix of bacteria. There are many pseudoscience tests available that will diagnose you with bacterial overgrowth, but the reality is our gut is a war zone, and we do not have enough knowledge to determine which bacteria work together and which are harmful. The byproducts of these interactions are chemicals produced by dying or victorious bacteria. These chemicals affect everything in our bodies, including mental health. Some scientists even believe that consciousness ultimately resides in the gut, not the brain, and that we are essentially a colony organism. The mechanism of action for most mental health medications is not clear. Scientists once thought they directly boosted neurotransmitters or flooded synapses. What may be more accurate is that they eliminate certain bacteria, resulting in a rebalance of brain chemicals. Weight loss medications and surgeries also seem to affect the composition of the gut microbiome. It is this change in composition that supports weight loss. Some bacteria are simply better at processing food in our gut, while others contribute to inflammation. Story 48. Cellular memory. Humans have discovered that memories are not only stored in the brain. I wonder how we can use this to improve our reality. Story 49. Not a doctor, but I work in the medical field. Cancer can develop anywhere in the body, including the ear, salivary glands, and appendix. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.